For the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please let the record note that all council members except Mr. Ramos are present this evening. We've got we got minutes for the meeting of March 26th. We don't have the minutes of the meeting of March 26th. We'll look at those next time. We do have a committee schedule, however, Ms. Rabine.
We do. So City Council will be meeting on the 3rd of April from 10 in the morning until 11 a.m. at the Doubletree Edgewater Hotel. It's not technically a committee of the whole meeting, but we anticipate we're going to have lots and lots of council members there. It's the Missoula Organizational of Realtors press conference and release of the housing report. Regular committee meetings will start Wednesday, the 4th of April. Public Works starts us out from 9:25 in the morning to 9:55. Land Use and Planning will follow from 10 to 10:40. Public Safety and Health goes from 10:45 to 11:40. Budget Committee goes from 12:40 to 1:40. And Public Safety and Health will go from 1:45 to 3:45. All those meetings are being held here in the council chambers. And then I think it's next week, is it Monday? Yeah, it is. Next week, Monday, the 9th of April, from 11 to 1, we expect a quorum of City Council to be at the Doubletree Edgewater again for the State of the Community address given by the Mayor, the Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and the President of the University. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Any changes to the committee schedule? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is your opportunity to comment on items not elsewhere on the agenda this evening.
Now?
Yes, sir. Please.
Public comment period now. It's a little bit out of the blue. I'm not a public speaker, so if you don't mind, I'll read from this just a bit. But on Easter Sunday, our president declared no more docket deal. And,
Jake, would you mind identifying yourself for the record, please?
Oh, yes. Jake Ellison, live here in Missoula.
Thank you.
And, you know, instead of just commenting on Facebook over and over again, I wanted to come here and just make a public statement and hope that somehow we can have a public statement as a community. I mean, together we have the power. I don't know how much power you have against the power of the Trump administration, but it is more than I have. And it is more than any one group has alone. But together we have to come up with a response to this. I mean, this is 1 million American citizens who have known nothing but this country, that he's going to have his administration take out of the country, as you well know. Layers of nonsense going on out of Washington, D.C., especially out of the Twitter account of the president. But that said, I just feel like we have to face this threat against human decency, fairness, justice, the morals that make this a good country, the morals that make me have the right to come here before you and say such things. And I don't know if Missoula can or should be a sanctuary city. I don't even know what that would mean. But it does seem like there's other things we can do instead of that. Big step. Like you guys writing a letter that publicly announces this city's rejection and abhorrence at that policy. There must be some way that we can together act as a community against something that's so obviously horrific. And so that's really all I said, or all I came to say. And so I hope you guys can think about doing something like that. I mean, it isn't just some problem in Washington, D.C. There are people here, people all over the country. So anyway, thank you for your time. That's all I have to say. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moore.
In The Independent, there was an article written by Susan Shepard concerning, quote, so many jobs. One of her paragraphs basically was talking about the manager of Lucky's and others. One of her paragraphs stated this: the city's contribution to Lucky's was a $50,000 tax increment financing grant for facade improvements. Additional contributions of nearly $7 million in TIF funds for the Murray Street extension were part of the larger Southgate Mall developments. Now, at a board meeting of the MRA a couple of years ago, the mayor, the director of the MRA, and I don't know his exact title, but he works for the engineering firm, all stated that the purpose of the road was to provide connectivity from Brooks to Reserve. Never mentioned the shopping center. Never mentioned the shopping center. So here this lady is saying that the millions and millions and millions of dollars were given to the owners of the shopping center, and as it turned out, the new owners of the shopping center, was for the development of the mall, as I have been saying from day one. The only purpose of spending that money, and I think you should be ashamed of it, was to assist in the ownership of that shopping center. Even down to $50,000 for the facade. Then I get this thing in the mail, Nourishing Times. Y'all have probably seen this. Missoula Food Bank and Community Center. We got tens and tens of millions of dollars to give away to developers, builders, professionals, and so forth. Millions and millions of dollars. It must not be hurting them, because this section of the report, 2017 in review, states 6,363 different households were served in the store of the Missoula Food Bank. That's probably, assuming there's 3 people per household, we're real close to 20,000 citizens of Missoula is getting assistance from the Missoula Food Bank. And yet all I hear is about how great Missoula is. I've heard it from y'all, I've heard it everywhere, how great Missoula is. You can say this is great, that we're helping 20,000 citizens of Missoula. That's good, I guess. But on the other hand, something's sadly wrong with the city that has where it's going to give, I think we've got over 70,000 residents, 20,000 people needing assistance from a food bank. I don't know if it's jobs, the cost of houses, that's getting to be the blame for everything now, or what. But these things, 2 things I'm mentioning. And you need to get corrected and start running Missoula on a different time frame and a different basis. Johnson, who's taken over the managership of Lucky's, made a statement about that area, talking about the shopping center.
I think next week you can give us the rest of the story. You're at 4.5 minutes tonight.
Don't. I'm not asking for more than 3 minutes.
We went to 4.5.
You know my opinion on it anyway.
I think I do, actually. Any additional public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Items on that agenda were approved unanimously in council standing committees, and we save a little time on Monday evenings by voting on these items all at once. Ms. Rabine will read the list of consent agenda items aloud so folks in the audience and those at home will know what we're considering, and we'll take comment on those items before we vote. Ms. Rabine.
Thanks, Mayor Engen. The consent agenda tonight has 7 items, and the first, as always, is claims, which are the city's accounts payable. The council is being asked to approve claims in the amount of $882,514.19 for checks that are dated tomorrow, April 3rd, 2018. Number 2 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Newfields Company, LLC, for oversight and documentation of the environmental cleanup at Montana Rail Link Park in an amount not to exceed $29,304. Number 3 is to confirm the mayor's reappointment of Ellen Buchanan to the Business Improvement District Board for a term that begins June 1st, 2018 and expires on May 31st of 2022. Number 4 is to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Camp Well Drilling and Pump Service for water pump removal, inspection, and reinstallation at Dickens and Willowwood, at the Dickens Street and Willowwood water wells for cost that doesn't exceed $25,500. Number 5 is to award the bid for construction services on the Stoddard Defoe Street water main replacement project as a component of the 2018 utility improvement projects for the water system to Doug Smith Grading, LLC, for an amount not to exceed $1,117,774.60, and authorize the return of bid bonds. Number 6 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Diggett Excavation for excavation and earth-moving services that will be provided on an on-call basis for emergency water line repairs to be paid for from the Missoula Water Division's repair budget. And finally, number 7 is to adopt a resolution of intention to close and vacate public right-of-way that's being being the south 20 feet of Holly Street, lying adjacent to Lot 12, Block 147, the Parkside Edition, located at the intersection of Harrison and Holly Streets, and setting a public hearing on that matter for April 16th, 2018.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Are there questions or comments from council members this evening? Ms. Becerra?
I abstained from voting on item number 2 during our committee meeting, and I'll be abstaining today for a potential conflict of interest.
Thank you. With that, anyone in the audience care to comment on any of the items on the consent agenda?
And number 3 is the reappointment to the Business Improvement District Board of Ellen Buchanan. If the MRA's purpose is to take money, millions and millions and more millions of dollars from taxpayers and give it to developers, then I guess Ellen would be somebody that you would want to appoint there, because she is doing a wonderful job of spending taxpayers' money for the benefit of developers, dentists, everybody you can think of. I don't think that's the case, so I object to the appointment of Ellen Buchanan to the district board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Any other public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote with the understanding that Ms. Becerra is abstaining from item number 2. Sorry.
On the consent agenda, Anderson. Yes. Anderson votes yes. Armstrong. Yes. Armstrong votes yes. Becerra. Yes. Becerra votes yes on all items except for number 2 and votes abstain on item number 2. Cares. Yes. Cares votes yes. DeBari. DeBari votes yes. Harp. Yes. Harp votes yes. Hess. Yes. Hess votes yes. Jones. Yes. Jones votes yes. Merritt. Yes. Merritt votes yes. Von Lossberg. Yes. Von Lossberg votes yes. And West. West votes yes. Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 10 ayes. And let's see, 10 ayes and 1 abstention and 1 absent on item number 2, and 11 ayes and 1 absent on items 1 and 3 through 7.
And we'll move on to comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, authorities, and the community forum. We do have a neighborhood council report all the way from Lewis and Clark. Mr. Westfall.
Thank you for allowing me to speak here, and my apologies, first of all, for missing the time last week. Sincerely apologize for that. I'm Dave Westfall, member of the Lewis and Clark neighborhood and on the Lewis and Clark Leadership Committee. Back in March 21st of this year, we held our semi-annual general meeting where we addressed the neighborhood. Spoke about a number of topics and covered a lot of ground that started back in September. So the last general meeting before this was September 7th at Playfair Park. During that meeting, we elected 5 new members to the neighborhood council. We brought it up to a total of 7. Well, winter came and we lost 3 of those, so we were down a little bit. But we had another general meeting. We brought 3 back on. We brought Kathleen Hansen from the neighborhood, Robert Orr from the neighborhood, and John Wilkins has joined our neighborhood council leadership meeting, our leadership committee. So we're very happy and proud to have all of those people. And now Lewis and Clark is back, at least for the time being, at full strength. Back in September, we identified a number of issues that the community, the neighborhoods felt were of utmost importance. Some of those were parallel issues like speeding around Centennial High School and safety concerns and sidewalks and biking lanes and all of that around the high school. So we kind of grouped that together into one thing. Another major topic was what once was called the children's fishing ponds, which was then called the duck ponds, and is now pretty officially called Bancroft Ponds. Because the nature of that area, that environment, if you will, changes. It's not a totally natural environment. We'll get into that a little bit later. So we addressed these 3 topics and these 3 comments, these 2, with the group. The third was recycling. Let me start with that. We posed some questions. We talked to the people there about recycling, and some of the anecdotal data that we've gathered, some of it empirical, but most of it, frankly, anecdotal, is that it looks like there's about 33% of the people in that northern and Lewis and Clark area from south and Higgins west and Bancroft east and maybe Russell east. Right? That's really Playfair Park there. And Patty Creek north. It's 500 neighborhoods in that general rectangle. We estimate that there's 33 to 50% of those people that are actively recycling right now, either with Republic services or drop-off points, and even a few with Missoula compost collection, and a neighbor of mine that is composting in their backyard. Okay? So there's a number of different things. So we talked to the people and we said, what's it going to take? What is it going to take to get to something closer to 90% or 100%? I constantly hear people say, why is Missoula not recycling like crazy? This should be. People come from outside and people from the inside of Missoula say this should be like the model for recycling. We would like to propose that we figure out a way to take Lewis and Clark, that small little neighborhood, but right in the middle of everything, and try to figure out a way to make a model recycling community, okay? So we're going to go to Republic and we're going to propose to them, hey, what if we can get 90 people, or 90% of the people, or 80% of the people can sign up for recycling efforts? Can we get a deal? Right? Can we get a price that makes it so attractive to people that they just get over the dollars and cents aspect of the equation and say, so you're going to put that bucket with the yellow cover in the blue? Yep, okay, do it. All right. So that's what we're moving towards. Right? right? We kind of left it at that. But I got to tell you that there was a pretty fair amount of enthusiasm from the neighbors to do something. So we left it at that. Create a model for Missoula in Lewis and Clark. The second item is traffic and speeding around Sentinel High School. We've been working with Ben Weiss at the Department of Bike and Pedestrian Department. He's the program manager for that department within the city. He's done a lot of studies. He's run numbers on calming circles. We have an example in the University District of usage of common circles. The empirical data tells us that speed limits are slowed down by 2 miles an hour. Now, 2 miles an hour doesn't sound like much, but when the average is 25, that's almost 10%. Every little bit helps. But more importantly, the cut-through numbers are 6 or 7% less. A lot of the neighbors that are in that northern part of Lewis and Clark, south of South, west of Higgins, east of Patty Creek, right by Sentinel, are getting younger adults that cut through because they can. Calming circles in the University District, to the best of our knowledge, anecdotally, all right, appear to be something that the neighborhood feels has worked. It adds some aesthetic improvement. It helps safety a little bit. It helps slowing down speeding, less severe accidents. We're proposing that we put out an SID, a special improvement district. It's going to be about $90,000 to $100,000. 500 people over 10 years. That's about $200 a household. So we're going to float this out. We're working with Ben Weiss and some other people to figure out how to get a notification out to the public to vote for it. So we're deep into that. Third item, the ponds. Clearly the most important issue, but also contentious, I think. All right. But the one thing that's not contentious about it is that people really love it there, and they want it to be an important part of Lewis and Clark, and they want it to be something that is truly valuable. So what we did was we formed a steering committee. We brought in Morgan Valiant, we brought in Naomi Aladef from the National Federation, Wildlife Federation. We brought in Lily Haynes from the Clark Coalition. I chair the committee. We're working on getting a few people from the neighboring schools, and through this general meeting just a few nights ago, we brought in some other people from the community, John Wilkins included. With that, what we want to do and what we've done is we said, well, what's the purpose of this park? Said, what kind of park is this? Who does it serve? How does it serve? And so to figure that out, it was really quite easy, because people have been working on the answers to those questions, not for years, for decades. So we went back, and all we did was reaffirm other objectives, other strategies, other tactics, okay, that focus on those three things. Our objectives are these, simple, 3 objectives. Number 1, protect and foster diversity of wildlife habitat. Sounds simple, it's a lot. There's a lot of endangered species. There's a lot of critters in that area that depend on that park. It's a big part of this. Promote educational opportunities for our youth. It's right in the backyard of Russell and Lewis and Clark Elementary. It's right in the backyard of Sentinel. It's not far from Washington. These kids can walk, they can easily bus. And opportunities not just for youth, but for elderly and everything in between. And develop and build community engagement. This is bigger than just Lewis and Clark. This is just a subset of what we feel should be done throughout Missoula. It's part of an archipelago. When you have a semi-natural situation like this that's built on a watershed, Patty Creek, which is a creek that turns into a canal, which turns into a ditch, which is a series of ponds, it's all this various man-made and natural stuff, which we have, by the way, pretty much all through Missoula. right? These little spots. And if you look at them as a human, as a Homo sapien, you go, well, that's a little thing over there, and that's a little pond over there. But if you're a bird, or if you're a duck, or if you're a fish, you figure out how to get from one way to another, and you don't use Higgins, and you don't use Paddy Creek, you use the water, you use the air, you use the land. These are all interconnected pieces. We want to make a model of Bancroft ponds. So we want to raise the awareness for our youth. We want to use it as an educational opportunity. We want to build this community engagement. And at the end of the day, we want to create something. And we've put in for grants for signage and things that we can kind of dress it up with, put a little lipstick on it, but it needs a lot more than that. It needs hands in the dirt. It needs getting rid of invasive trees. It needs planting new trees. It needs a number of these things to kind of rejuvenate it and improve it, all right? With the notion of bringing it to a point where people can really use it to just walk and listen and reflect, and where they can be serene and where it can be tranquil, and they can literally get in touch with nature just in this tiny little spot. It's smack dab in the middle of Missoula. And we want it to be a model for the community, so we're working hard towards that goal. That's what we discussed. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Westfall. Appreciate your time this evening.
I didn't run too far over, did I?
You're just fine. Thank you again. We will move on to communications from the mayor. Wanted to acknowledge a couple things. One is the passing of Ty Robinson, a Missoula icon, a great soul, a great citizen, and he will certainly be missed. Ty would pop in occasionally to give me advice and moreover to cheer me up once in a while, and I'm grateful for that and for him. And also, I didn't have a chance to get to Ethel McDonald's 80th birthday party, but it was a thing, and Ethel is a force with which to be reckoned. So happy birthday, Ethel. We'll begin general comments from city council members this evening with Mr. Von Lossberg.
I agree. Ethel is a force to be reckoned with, so happy birthday, Ethel. I thought I'd quickly mention that my colleague, and I believe the mayor as well, and I got a letter from an anonymous constituent not happy with too long a time of street cleaning vehicles on their street, upset about potholes. We should stop building parks and work on the potholes and the weeds. And in all caps, there was a dare to bring this up at council. And so if the person wants to let Heidi or I know, I'd be happy to point them to the pothole online repair site and address any other concerns I have. Thanks.
Ms. West. Mr. Hess.
Thanks. I was just looking for, in response to Mr. Westfall's informative report. I appreciate that. I wanted to highlight that the impact of reducing speeds by just a couple percent, a couple mile per hour, really is a life and death issue. The odds of pedestrian death when struck at 20 miles an hour is just 5%. When struck at 30 miles an hour is 45%, and when struck at 40 miles an hour is 85%. So traffic calming is a real neighborhood enhancement and a real safety benefit, and I applaud you for pursuing it.
Ms. Becerra.
I too would like to wish Ethel a happy birthday. If I can bike half the miles that she does by the time I'm 50, I'll be golden. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Westfall for your report. And although I live on the other side of town, I do enjoy the ponds quite a bit. I think they're a great asset to the community.
Ms. Jones.
Yeah, thanks for the report tonight. And it sounds like you have some eagle projects, and you need to find some potential eagles and work with some youth in Missoula and whatever the Girl Scout equivalent is. It sounds like you have some opportunities there. And on the issue of Eagle Scouts, I wanted to take a few minutes and tell some Ty Robinson stories, who was also an Eagle Scout. So with that segue, I'm going to take a few minutes here. For those who didn't know him, Ty Robinson was the Robinson and Garlington Lawn and Robinson, a law firm here in Missoula, and he was very much a people person, and he really liked people. When he would say hello to you and ask you how you were, you could tell he really cared about what your response was, and that permeated his entire life, I think. But he also had a lot of backbone, and he was very strong, and he was a great advocate when he was representing someone as an attorney. But I got a few stories about him from my dad, who knew him very well. Ty grew up in Columbia Falls, and his dad was a deputy sheriff in that area, and in the summer times they had a cabin on Flathead Lake. And when Ty was about 5 or 6 years old, there were a couple summers there when Charlie Russell, who was a good friend of Ty's dad, would come and visit, and they liked to go out drinking. And Ty's memory of that was, he remembers them coming in late, and his mom would scold them, and she was so mad that her husband was hanging around with this riffraff who was a bad influence on their children, their 2 boys. So I just love that Charlie Russell was in the doghouse when Ty was growing up. And then Ty went on, he went to the University of Montana, and he played for the Grizzly basketball team and was a big star there. And then World War II, he was in the Navy as an ensign, and he was assigned to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii and worked under Admiral Nimitz in the headquarters there, which was the fleet headquarters. And Admiral Nimitz, who was in charge of all of this, heard that there was a great basketball player in the crew of men, and Ty wound up playing volleyball every afternoon with Admiral Nimitz. And because Admiral Nimitz really believed in having a lot of physical exercise to deal with the stress of running this entire operation. And Ty never did say who won the majority of those games. So he was an officer and a gentleman to the end. And then the last story, and this is my favorite, is, so Ty was an attorney. He practiced for many years. He started out as general counsel for the Missoula Mercantile, and then later on, as his practice expanded, he was a lobbyist in Helena. He represented the railroads, Northwestern Power Company, a lot of the big corporations in Montana. And at some point, the Missoulian did a big article on the Missoulian did a big article on lobbyists in Helena, and they queried a lot of the legislators to find out what lobbyists they liked the most. And Ty's name never came up once. And a while later, there was some kind of follow-up article, and it was asked of many of the legislators, well, what about Ty Robinson? We were surprised his name didn't come up. And the answer they heard from a lot of people in Helena was, he's a lobbyist? They didn't know he was a lobbyist. They just thought he was their friend, there to give them information, which I think is about the most effective lobbyist you can be. So rest in peace, Ty. He died at the age of 102. He was a huge contributor to our community in a very positive way and enjoyed life. So I just wanted to share those with you tonight.
Ms. Harp.
I had a couple things. First off, I just want to remind everybody that the streets department is now starting to clean our streets. We have gotten through, we think, winter, but perhaps maybe not. And they're going to be coming around each neighborhood 1 week at a time to clean up all the gravel since that was laid during the winter. And so for Kathy Fisher out there, who's a teacher at Meadow Hill School, she's always been asking me, when is it going to happen? Can it happen sooner? So I wish I could push it along sooner, but it can't. And secondly, Ty Robinson was a great man. He came to my Kiwanis Club a couple of times and was a wonderful speaker. And last week, I have to say, we had another gentleman who came in who was a phenomenal speaker as well. His name is Brendan Work, and he's a teacher of Arabic in our public schools. And this young man just blew our entire community out of the water in terms of what he was able to say about the work that he does, teaching what seems like a very small handful of kids in our community, but it keeps growing. And I have to say, if I was to ever learn another language, Arabic would be the next one.
Mr. Damari. Ms. Armstrong.
So I had the opportunity to go to the sex trafficking conference last week, and
was just as enlightening on the long conference as it was when Detective Baker came in and spoke to us. And the next opportunity will be April 10th at the Salvation Army, which I can forward information to you if you would like to get involved on the sex trafficking task force. It is something that is unfortunately growing in our community and is unnoticed because we don't know the signs to look for. We don't know how to train people to look for the signs, to reach out to somebody and start the conversation. So it was very enlightening. The other thing I was going to mention, the Shriners are doing a walkathon on June 9th out at Fort Missoula to raise money for their annual fundraiser, and if anybody wants information on that, I can give them that too.
Ms. Anderson. Ms. Merritt.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that April 2nd is Autism Awareness Day. That is something that impacts our family, so I wanted to share that. And Mr. Westfall, I wanted to mention that there are other companies in town that do recycling besides Republic, and you might check into that with your group that wants to do that. I commend you all for your efforts in wanting to do more recycling. I think that's great.
Ms. Karras. With that, we have no committee reports this evening, folks, nor do we have any new business. Are there any additional items to be referred? Seeing none of those, any miscellaneous communications, reports, petitions, or announcements? Seeing none, as always, I thank you for your service, and we will be adjourned.